Very good morning and welcome you all for today's session. We'll be discussing the last block of our social anthropology paper today. This block is on focusing on Indian tribes, what type of problems they are facing, what type of protections they are given under our constitution, and also other administrative aspects which provide protection as well as opportunities, etc., to the tribal communities. Hello, am I audible to you all? Let's start with Indian tribes and their problems mainly. What type of problems they are facing? Most of the Indian tribes are, of course, they are living in various areas, plains or forests, etc. But many tribal communities are having agricultural lands also. They are living along with the villages and doing agriculture. Here, of course, we are not going into the details of economic development or various occupations which they take up and all that. Here we'll be focusing on a major problem with which tribes in India are suffering. What is that? I think you might have come across various newspaper articles or journalism articles. Hello, am I audible to you all? For instance, Vedanta Refinery, a very big company, corporate company, which has taken more than 500 acres in our present day Orissa state. But this entire area, or rather most of this area, is a tribal belt or forest area. And against this, tribal communities residing in that forest area raised their voice, and for many years they were struggling for the rights over their land. But unfortunately, it has not happened.
Hello, good morning, ma'am. Ma'am, your mic is on mute, ma'am. Please unmute your mic. You are not audible. Your mic is on mute, ma'am. Yes, your voice is not.
Now?
Yeah, ma'am. Now
Oh,
you're
I'm
audible.
sorry. No, some disturbance came at the beginning, so probably at that time. Okay. So I'm really very sorry. Okay, I'll take 1 minute to describe what I talked when my mic was mute. So what we were saying is different types problems. Major problem is displacement and how this displacement occurs. We usually see two varieties of situations. One is where tribal communities, in order to merge with the non-tribal communities like villages and all that, they will be selling their lands to the villages. Or sometimes it happens, they usually take loans in order to perform certain rituals and all that. And usually they'll give their lands or their ownership rights to the non-tribal people, Mahajans or villagers or other people, in lieu of the loan. Here also, they will not get much income. Sometimes they will never get any income. Sometimes even non-tribal communities are encroaching their property. Because of this indebtedness or because of their ignorance or their innocence, they are innocent in the sense they don't know the sale or agreement to sale or ownership, who is going to get ownership rights, all these technical aspects they are unaware. Because some of the tribal communities, they have not even entered into the money economy or monetary economy. Still barter system is prevalent in those societies. So that society coming into the present day modern society and understanding various nuances of economic dealings doesn't arise at all. So this results in they losing their property and non-tribal communities, non-tribal people gaining their property. In other words, once they lose their property, once they lose their ownership rights over the place where they're residing, or the place where they are collecting their forest products or where they are hunting their game, then they have to leave that place and go to some other place. So it's a kind of displacement. Besides this, developmental activities are creating a lot of displacement of tribal communities. I have already mentioned one example of Vedanta refinery where forest area was taken by Vedanta refinery to start the developmental activity, having the refinery there, and which resulted in displacement of many tribal people. Similarly, Sardar Sarovar project, even that also, it's a developmental activity, very big reservoir construction that is needed for our development, but that resulted in displacement of many people, both tribal as well as non-tribal communities. Similarly, by Sardar Sarovar project of, let us say, other states, what about our own state, Telangana or Andhra Pradesh or both? What is happening? If government takes up a new project or construction of new reservoir or having some kind of factory, all these are termed as developmental activities, but invariably all these result in the displacement of tribal communities because we'll be entering into the forest area. Forest area is tribal communities area. Whatever the economic pursuits they are doing in the forest only. That is, they are forest dwellers. If we are encroaching into the forest, then what happens? We know. Sometimes we may not, non-tribal people or government also may not encroach into the forest area, but it may enact certain laws. For instance, Forest Act is there. In fact, Forest Act was enacted way back during the Britishers. Britishers wanted to have ownership over the entire forest products, particularly wood, which was mostly taken to the Britain. There they have constructed their houses and all that, and utilizing wood is a fashionable one. Even today we consider it. But from where are they getting that wood? From our forests only. Then during 19th century, British government made one enactment, namely Forest Act. This enactment brought ownership to the non-tribal societies rather than tribal societies who are dependent upon the forests. Unfortunately, that Forest Act, of course, it is amended many times, no doubt. But the original gist or quintessence of the Forest Act, that is having ownership over the forest, is still with the government. It is not with the tribal communities. When it is not with the tribal communities, if government takes any action or issues any order, obviously, who will be suffering? Obviously, tribal communities have to come out of the forest. Of course, some of the communities, they have merged themselves into rural societies. For them, this may not create a problem, but these communities are very few, not all. Still, there are so many communities dependent upon the forest products. Let me take a simplest example. The most primitive community of our state, or for that matter, Telugu-speaking states, Chenchus. Even today, they live in the forest only. Srisailam, Nallamala, these names are familiar to you, I know. And Chenchus live in these Nallamala forests. Of course, the urban culture or rural culture is entering into Chenchus hamlets also. But still, we are having many Chenchus living in the foresty area, dependent upon forest products. That may be honey or that may be certain other forest products, etc. Even today, their hunting is linked to this forest only. Even today, some of the Chenchu community people, those who are living inside the Nallamala forest area, they have never been to any nearby city. Forget about Hyderabad and all that. They have never been to. In such a scenario, what happens? They cannot understand the non-tribal society and its culture. Let me mention, I'll take only half a minute in this. Once we had been to this Chenchu forest area, we were doing some project there. We met the project officer there. Of course, he described where they are living and how they are living and all those things. So he was also, in his narration, he was also saying that Chenchus are unaware of various things. In order to describe this, I am mentioning it. It so happened, it seems, one Chenchu boy of 19 years was arrested by the police people for murder of his wife. Then police, of course, asked him what has happened. He could not describe what has happened, but he said that he has committed murder. He killed his wife. During police inquiry, questions were posed to him. Why did you kill your wife? What he said is, my wife was not good. I saw in my dream that my wife is having an affair with some other person. Hence, I killed her, since it is wrong. I know, for us, it looks very funny. But you please try to understand the situation. Tribal communities, particularly Chenchus, I'm talking about specifically Chenchus. So what they strongly believe is whatever experiences they are having, their near and dear are having, they see in their dreams. That is linked with their religion. In this case, please try to understand the Chenchu boy killed his wife because he saw his wife with some other person in his dream. So for a Chenchu, that is fact. But for a non-Chenchu, it is not. Then what about the loss? Since he has accepted that, confessed that he has killed his wife, then whatever punishment is there for murder, that will be given to this Chenchu boy because he himself has confessed. I think you can see the very tricky or critical dilemmas or situations which occur when we go to tribal communities and try to boss over them. If you read Von Führer Heimandar or Sarachandra Rai, umpteen number of examples they have mentioned how non-tribal societies are creating problems for tribal societies. For instance, most of the tribal societies taking country-made liquor is part of their culture. Even their worships, gods and goddesses also will be offered country-made Like, for instance, Chenchus, they take more flowers or Ippasara, they usually say. But when non-tribal society people entered into their society, they have introduced, it has happened in many tribal societies, they have introduced not country-made, indigenous-made liquor, but other liquor, alcoholic beverages. And they like these alcoholic beverages, but in order to purchase country-made liquor, they themselves create that. They don't require any money for that. They collect forest products and they prepare it. But if they want to go for alcoholic beverages, they have to spend money. From where can they get money? They have to go for some kind of loan. And many people become alcoholics. And because of this alcoholism, they need money, I have already mentioned. They have to sell their lands, even if they are owners of the land. Sometimes that resulted in a variety of other problems also. So why I am discussing all these problems is, for one thing, tribal communities are suffering with a major problem, namely land alienation and resultant displacement. They are losing their lands. They are shooed away from their lands. Where I have already mentioned many cases, right? And you can see many. Sometimes some of the tribal communities migrate from their original place to other states also. Say, for instance, in our state, we have one tribal community, Gutti Koya. And many researchers have found that they are exactly not from this area, that is Telugu-speaking states, but they are from other states. Why? Let us forget about Gutti Koyas. What about a very developed tribal community, Lambada? We come across Lambada people in most of the Telangana area. Some of the districts are having more number of Lambada tandas than villages. But what about the origin of Lambada tribal community? They are not from Telugu speaking areas. They are from other states, Rajasthan area. How can we say, if we see their culture, their ways of worship, and what type of cultural rituals they are having, their behavioral patterns, all their dress pattern, all they show that they are migrants from some other state. Why are they, or how they migrated? Some of the communities probably, I'm not saying only Lambadas, but some of the communities may migrate because of their nomadic style of living. Most of the tribal communities are nomads. But all tribal communities are not nomadic. They have their own tandas, or they are having their own villages. They stay there only. But because of the land alienation, I have already mentioned, taking loans from the Mahajans or non-tribal people are not able to understand the nuances of economic transactions, and with the non-tribal communities or merger of tribal communities, tanda or village into non-tribal village. All these created land alienation. They lost their land. When they lost their land, they have to leave that place. That is displacement. Now, what activities we are taking up from solving this problem of displacement and land alienation? Our government, union as well as state governments, made so many laws and orders, proceedings were issued. Constitution also clearly says, in fact, Article 19(1)(c) was amended when our Constitution came into existence. A part of article, that is a right to property. There it was clearly mentioned that if any property is declared as property of tribal communities, no non-tribal will be allowed to purchase that property. Later, of course, some amendments and changes occurred. But we are having Environmental Protection Act, and under that enactment, we have given power to the collector to declare a particular piece of land or some property as forest land. When any land is declared by the collector as forest land, then tribal communities residing there will have property rights over the land. They cannot be shooed away. They cannot be displaced from that particular place without let us say, government, appropriate government, the word will be used there, state government or central government. Not only that, non-tribal communities, particularly some of the activities, should not be organized within a particular range from that forest area. Of course, we are having many great people. They violate the rule in a subtle way. Let me take half a minute on this. It so happened in a particular state, I don't want to mention the state's name. In a particular state, it so happened a person, a businessman wanted to have a resort there, resort as well as bar. And the place which he has chosen is nearly very nearer to the forest area and the highway also. As per the collector's directions, minimum 500 meters distance should be there between any such entertainment activities and forest area as well as highway. It was not exactly on the, let us say, fencing of forest. He has started this, and many people were coming there and enjoying. One organization working for tribal people, it has filed a petition before the High Court, and from there the case went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court questioned, and it said whatever licenses were given, all those licenses were cancelled, and a direction was given to that particular person who has established this entertainment activity that he should vacate that place and go away. Do you know what he did? The rule is 500 meters. So he has left 600 meters and once again started his activities. So there are people who do like this. This is a kind of, innocent tribal people versus very shrewd non-tribal people creates more and more problems. Similarly, persons who are having mines in tribal areas. Mines, I think you have to go to the, what can I say, forest and all that. There only you can do your mining activities. Assam is suffering a lot with these activities. In order to dig, we cannot do that. We have to use some kind of gelatin sticks or dynamites. They usually use dynamites in order to do their mining activities. I know you may say that, yes, they are doing their activity. What's wrong with that? There is a problem with which tribal communities are suffering. Assam area is a reserved forest area for, all of you are well aware, for elephants. Elephants cannot bear with big bangs or sounds. Once the dynamite is used, then what happens? The entire flock of elephants will become very panicky. And in that panic situation, they may attack the tribal communities or tribal hamlets also. So most of the tribal people are living in such a fear from, not from human beings and other things, from elephants. So what is that they have chosen? They left their villages and they started migrating to other places. Here we cannot say, okay, developmental activity has created displacement, but indirectly developmental activity or our methods which we are using to do our mining activities is creating displacements to tribal communities. Keeping all these, our governments have established rehabilitation policies. So if any tribe or tribal village is ousted from a particular place, or any tribal family is displaced, then government provides rehabilitation. This rehabilitation, let me take a simplest thing in two ways. Compensation will be paid to them so that they can establish their, once again, their own villages or their activities and all that. Some other place they will be sent there. Or if it is not possible, various activities, economic pursuits also, or employment opportunities also will be given to them. These are the two methods we are following in order to rehabilitate tribal societies. But here, one aspect we should remember, rehabilitation is happening, no doubt government is giving rehabilitation provisions and all that, but Awareness also is a crucial one. Most of the tribal communities are not aware of these rehabilitation processes. So unless and until awareness is there, they cannot approach the offices and all that. Even awareness is there, approaching governmental offices also is very problematic for them. That may be communication, or that may be lack of knowledge about all those things. But still, though we are having rehabilitation policies, displacement and its percentage, rehabilitation and its percentage are not on par with, they are not equal. Rehabilitation is very less compared to the displacement. Then how best we can take the issue of tribal communities? Are there any provisions which protect them or not? Let us have an idea. Your next unit is on constitutional provisions. Unit number 14 is on constitutional provisions for scheduled tribes. In fact, scheduled tribes, scheduled castes, these two words are used in our constitution. A tribe or a caste can be declared by the president or governor as scheduled tribe or caste, depending upon various criteria. These criteria also are mentioned. So when a tribe is considered as a scheduled tribe, then all these provisions are applicable to them. Sometimes a particular community may be considered a scheduled tribe in one state and may not be in another state. Let me take once again the Lambada case only. Lambadas are considered a scheduled tribe in Telugu-speaking states, but they are backward classes if we go to Rajasthan. Like that, there are many. I've given only one example, but there are many. Similarly, tribal development ministry is there. And this ministry will be collecting data about tribal people, where they are living, what activities they are doing, and classifying them also. On the basis of their developmental state or level of development, we classify them into most primitive, and advanced tribal communities. So accordingly, various projects we are having. But on the basis of what we are having these projects, let us have an idea. In our country, somewhere around 8% of our population, sometimes even more than that, I'm saying only on an average, are from tribal societies. We are having highly developed tribal societies like Varaun and Munda or Ho or Lambada, we have already mentioned, or Naga. But at the same time, many are not developed. Keeping the problems of situation of the tribal societies, our constitution makers, particularly at that time, we have followed one policy, that is assimilation policy. We were under the Britishers' rule for so many years, right? All of us are well aware of that. Britishers also tried to bring them into the mainstream. They have recruited many officers. For instance, Verrier Elwin was recruited by the British government only. And he studied all tribal communities in our country. And he has published 3 volumes. And then our British government has started giving some protections, but at the same time trying to exploit them also. Against this exploitation, in some places, movements also have occurred. For instance, Rana Bhagat movement in central India, Madhya Pradesh and other places. Similarly, Rampa Rebellion. If I say Rampa Rebellion, some of you may not be able to remember some names, but Alluri Sita Ramaraju, this name is familiar to you. But Rampa Rebellion is nothing but a kind of tribal rebellion. Many tribal communities, Kondari descent, other people, they have participated in that rebellion against the Britishers. Similarly, even in Assam also, various movements we come across. Birhar Munda, his name is probably familiar to you. Even he too has started kind of a movement against the British government and their policies. And Komuram Bhim, I think all of you are well aware of this name, thanks to RRR movie. but even Komaram Bhim also fought against the British people and their policies. At that time, when we were struggling for our independence and all that, all our leaders felt that tribal communities are suffering with a variety of problems, starting from indebtedness to displacement problem. We have to bring them into the mainstream so that whatever developmental activities we are taking up, even they too will be participating in these activities, and we can achieve balanced development for our country. So at the time, when we got our independence, Jawaharlal Nehru became the first prime minister to a country. And Jawaharlal Nehru adopted assimilation policy, assimilating tribal communities into mainstream, at the same time protecting their culture, because they are having their unique cultural traits. When this was going on, our constitution makers very strongly believed that since they are very backward compared to backward classes who are considered as economically, educationally, culturally backward, but they are much, much more backward than backward classes. So a schedule should be prepared for them. That is the reason they became scheduled tribes, and that is the reason scheduled castes, these words came into existence. In fact, scheduled caste, that word was used by the Simon Commission for the first time. Prior to that, it was not there. All these are castes only, or jati. Scheduled tribes should be provided protective legislation or positive discrimination, we call it. Our constitution has provided separate provisions for the development of scheduled tribes. But that does not mean that all the provisions which provide various rights to the non-tribal persons are not applicable to scheduled tribes. All these are applicable to them. Besides this, they are having certain other provisions for the development of tribal societies. What are the common principles? Our fundamental rights is one major provision. Discrimination should not be shown against anybody. All are equal, right? Article 14, 15, and 16. These three articles talk about the equality provision. Similarly, discriminating any group is illegal. Not only that, it is also punishable one. Untouchability is an offense. I think you might have heard this. Article 17 prohibits any type of discrimination. Clearly prohibits. Besides this, we are having constitutional remedies, another fundamental right. If, let us say, police arrests a person, tribal community person, then he can file, his relatives can file habeas corpus petition. Government has announced various activities for the development of the tribal societies, but government officials are not doing, let us say. Let us take simply as an example. Then a tribal person, just like any other person, will have a fundamental right to file writs for mandamus and certiorari. So this is another fundamental right which is given to them. Besides this, right to education, right to employment, these are all very recent additions to the fundamental rights. Even these also are available to our tribal societies, because even tribal people also are citizens of the country. We have directive principles of state policy. Directive principles of state policy clearly talks about taking care of, legislating upon, or having various executive duties for the betterment of the tribal communities. Not only that, in order to look into the affairs of various activities linked with scheduled tribes and their development, commissions also have to be established. Hence, we are having National Commission for Scheduled Tribes, and state level commissions for scheduled tribes also are having. Some of the powers of these commissions are assigned to the district collector. Not only that, under this commission's enactment, a person, if any let us say, injustice is done to him, then they can file a case before the National Commission or State Commission. So a parallel judiciary also, judicial power also are given to the National Commission. And National Commission deals with that issue and gives direction or judgment. Of course, this judgment immediately cannot be, let us say, used by a person unless and until it is accepted by the court. That part is there. But unlike, let us say, wasting time in going to the court, filing a case and roaming around the courts, immediately speedy justice will be provided by the commissions for any type of atrocities. Besides that, we are having Protection of Civil Rights Act. This enactment is enacted exclusively for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. Various disabilities we come across, we see, we observe in case of scheduled tribes as well as scheduled castes. Here, since we are talking about scheduled tribes, let me limit myself to only scheduled tribes. For instance, economic disability. In some places, they are not allowed to have any landed property. If they are nomads, they themselves will not have any landed property. But even if they are not nomads, even if they want to have settled abodes, sometimes they will not be allowed by the villagers. They say that you people are nomads, you are not allowed to construct your houses or have land here. Similarly, they are having religious disabilities. They are also having civil disabilities. All these disabilities create a situation where they will be looked down upon, they will be many a times. Injustice will be shown towards them. In order to stop all these, we have enacted an enactment that is Protection of Civil Rights Act. In fact, it was started as Untouchability Offences Act way back in 1955. Later, with so many amendments and all that, now we are having Protection of Civil Rights Act. Here, sometimes, let me take a simplest example. We have a habit of using language in a particular way. Each caste will have its own slang. Many times, you please try to see abuses which we use. Many times, these abuses are linked with tribal communities. You belong to so-and-so tribal community. We usually hear this. Even using or uttering these words also is enough, because they show that a kind of belittling a person in the name of the tribal community to which he belongs to. So Protection of Civil Rights Act punishes if you say so, because you are not supposed to show any type of discrimination. Like this, we are having enactments as well as constitutional issues, general issues. But what about the specific protections given by the Constitution to the tribal communities? Let us have a glance. They are allotted certain seats in the parliament as well as state legislatures. They are given certain special provisions in case of educations. We normally call them as reservations. Seats in education institutions will be allocated for them on the basis of their affiliation to a community rather than on the basis of marks and all those things. State governments are given a duty that they should provide scholarships, hostel facility, free books, etc. for the educational development of tribal societies. All of you are well aware. Pre-metric scholarships, post-metric scholarships. These scholarships for the educational development will run from class 1 to till they complete their PhD. These are certain other provisions: parliamentary seats, state legislature seats, scholarships, etc. Not only that, each government, state government, is expected to create residential schools and colleges for the educational development of tribal children. We may call them as Gurukula schools or residential schools, but every state is expected to do that. Even this also states are doing because they are asked, they are expected as per the provisions of the Constitution. We are also having various, let us say, developmental activities. Let us have a glance of tribal development in India. With this, we can complete social anthropology paper, because in our next class, we'll be starting your second paper, that is rural and urban sociology. Now, what is meant by tribal development? Of course, the name itself is very easy to understand, developing the tribal people. It is not, let us say, individual people. In order to have development of tribal people, what is expected to do and what we are doing. Each state government or central government also declares certain areas as tribal belt, or where 80% of the people belong to the tribal communities. And for these tribal belts, special developmental programs will be taken up. We usually, in our we call them integrated tribal development projects. When we started our community development projects way back in 1950s, at that time itself, we have started integrated tribal development projects, ITDP. I think most of you are aware of this particular thing. A full-fledged or all-pervasive or comprehensive development is the aim of these ITDP projects, integrated tribal development projects. What is meant by integrated, or what is meant by this comprehensive? Education, employment, health, all these aspects will be taken into consideration. And besides this, do we have any? Yes. In order to do any activity, developmental activity, we need money, right? So that is the reason our plans, we are having 5-year plans. In each 5-year plan, we allocate some amount exclusively for tribal development. Of course, since the last, let us say 3 plans, we are using another word also, sub-plan. It is not a mere allocation of money. It is more than that. We are allocating budget, taking tribal development as a specific head. That is the reason why we say sub-plan. Tribal sub-plan is there. Similarly, scheduled class sub-plan also is there. So a lump sum amount, and once again, we'll be doing exercises how best we can get development and all that. We also are taking certain measures in order to bring them into the mainstream by developing their education and skills. The present day government also, both at state, at central level as well as state level, has introduced many programs. Some are of course common for all, but specific emphasis will be given even in these programs. Say for instance, Beti Padhao, Beti Bachao. This program is meant for girls' education. But even in this program, it is not only all girls. Tribal girls will be given a little bit more this thing. By doing what? By having specific hostels or educational facilities exclusively for them, because they are very backward compared to other children. Similarly, in our state, we are having Kasturiba in that name. We are having many educational development programs, having residential colleges or schools, etc., giving scholarship and all that. We also are having various programs for the skill development programs. Narendra Modi has started this skill development program. Why even in our state also, we are having one word, T-Hub, or providing help and assistance for startups. Even here, scheduled tribe youth are there, then their projects will be given utmost importance so that we can bring economic development among the tribal communities. So like this, we have a variety of programs for the development of tribal communities. But still, we are facing little bit problems there. I will not go into many details because our time is not much. Let me take few. Certain factors are stopping the tribal people to utilize them. We have mentioned various programs. So this resulted in what? A kind of imbalance. We are having integrated tribal development projects, etc., etc. But some of the tribes are able to utilize all these and grow economically or educationally. Some are, because of their ignorance or cultural factors, they are not coming. This imbalance is creating once again intra-tribal conflicts. I think all of you probably might have seen newspaper articles where a developed tribe versus non-developed tribes. These, a kind of moment also occurred in our own state. I'm talking about Telangana state only. For instance, Gonds or Lambadas are highly developed economically and educationally also compared to other tribes. But a Rena or Rona or Kondakapu, if we compare, then they are not. Savaras are highly developed, Erukalas are highly developed, Yenaris also to some extent developed, but various other tribal communities living in the same area, they are not. So here, these imbalances are creating problem for a balanced development of tribal people. Then let's come to the second aspect of education. There we talked about economic education. Many times what happens, our education is always done in non-tribal languages. These languages, if we take to the tribal society, they will not be in a position to understand them. It will be very difficult for them to understand the languages and learn this. That is one of the reasons why very rarely we come across tribal children from certain communities entering into the school. Even if they come to the school, their education will be only up to 5th class or 6th class. Some, of course, are highly developed educationally. I have already mentioned the imbalance. Why it is happening? What we are doing is we are establishing schools in some tribal hamlets, but we are sending teachers not from the tribal area, but a non-tribal area. There always will be a kind of between tribal and non-tribal cultures. Then our people, because of various recommendations by various committees, what they thought is, okay, let us recruit teachers from the same tribal community, then that will be easier. But where are the teachers? They are not there. Since we have started various programs for educational development of tribal people, this process is going on. In certain other states, it is not exactly education, but the political aspects also are creating. Say, for instance, Nagaland, Manipur, Tripura, Meghalaya. Once upon a time, this entire area was termed as Northeastern Frontier Area. Here, they are all highly developed. I think you please try to remember our state level political organizations. In these areas, many tribal communities are residing, no doubt, but at the same time, they are highly developed societies. The political scenario of our country has tried to take out their self-sufficiency. Then there emerged resurgence. This resurgence is still going on. Nagaland is a central point for this resurgence. And not only that, what is happening? People who are participating in this resurgence, because of the tendency of our government, they are ready to be with our neighboring country like China rather than India. And this was very, very high during 1980s. At the time, once again, some kind of enactments were made, some projects were taken up by the government in order to reduce it, but the problem has not gone. Still, it is there. Still, we are having various problems linked with self-sufficiency of some of the tribal communities and government's attitude towards the tribal communities. So these are only few factors which we have to take into consideration in order to understand what is happening in reality related to the tribal government. Even today, a kind of coordination is required between the forest dwellers and their rights and forest acts. Unfortunately, even today, it is not yet done. And some areas which are agricultural areas or forestry areas owned by the tribal communities, they are invaded by the residential areas. You usually come across various ventures, and where these ventures are being taken up. Some of these ventures, they have started in tribal areas also, tribal belts also. When a venture is started for residents in an area where a tribal community merged into non-tribal community as a village they are residing. But what happens? That village will not be there. That will be displaced from that. If a village is displaced where 90% of the villages are tribal community people, then, once again, it is nothing but displacement only. Why it is going on? Because of the avarice of us. We would like to have a lot of money and all that. We are simply boosting. We are not at all giving any importance to the persons, particularly tribal communities and their rights. So like this, we are having various situations where which are not created balanced or comprehensive development, but still sporadic development, and still tribal problems are going on in our country. So with this, we can say our social anthropology paper is over. Now I know most of the students will ask what type of questions will be there. So my sincere advice is please jot down some topics and prepare essays. Because if you want to read the entire book, your time may not be sufficient, as most of you probably are working. That is the reason in each topic, if you see the synopsis, then the topic will be there, and you please prepare a kind of comprehensive essay. If you prepare some, let us say 10 or 15 such essays and prepare them thoroughly, then you can easily get good marks, more than 80% marks you can. And you are going to ask how to prepare this. Let me give one or two examples. Say, for instance, in the last block, we are having 3 units, right? First unit is on, simply as an example I am taking, first unit is on displacement problems. So here you can prepare 2 topics. That is displacement of tribal communities, and secondly, land alienation of tribal communities. These 2 are 2 major factors. Similarly, when you come to the second unit in block 5, that is on constitutional provisions. Even there you can prepare 2 topics. That is general rights, that is fundamental rights under provisions meant for all citizens, firstly. Second one is provisions under the constitution exclusively for the tribal societies. You may also prepare a short notes like National Commission for Tribal Communities, its constitution, its structure and functions. And the last one is tribal developmental aspects. There you can have 3 small topics like what is meant by tribal development concept, how we are doing. And the second one is tribal development plans. It is not simply remembering how much money is allocated in 5th plan or 6th plan or 7th plan or 1st plan. No. What type of activities are given importance? Please try to remember, because if you remember numbers, that is really fine if you can. But sometimes if you are not able to, then a student, usually students will become panic. So in order to avoid that, it is better if you remember which area was given importance. And the third one is what is meant by integrated tribal development projects. And another short topic, what are tribal problems and how best we are able to do, or critical analysis of our developmental activities. Like that, in each topic, if you take certain subtopics and prepare, then it will be cakewalk for you. I assure you, I guarantee you that you are going to get very good marks. But only thing is you have to read and prepare and remember correctly. Only one thing, please remember, dear students, please don't write whatever you feel like, because you are studying. Whatever you feel like, of course, if you are not studying, you are a mere literate, okay, people may accept. But if you are writing an examination specifically about a particular academic discipline, then you should know the matter and write. Right? Okay, then with this, let me conclude this class. I wish each and every student all the best. By our next class, it is first week of March, we are having 2 classes. If possible, please try to get rural and urban sociology study material with you. Meanwhile, you please read this. If you are having any doubts or any comments, let us see them in our next class. So until then, see you. Bye. Take care.